So there's a really wonderful, quirky little corner of the internet that I want you to know about. Because so much of the online experience these days feels like having hot garbage fired at you from a cannon. And I feel like this site is a little bit of an online oasis.
At last, the secret was mine.
It's a celebration of human creativity and knowledge. And it was designed to be simply just a fun place to showcase and explore the unusual treasures that history has to offer. So let's get into it.
Let's begin at the beginning, shall we?
Usually here I take a look at the online world, one content creator at a time, to help you know who's worth following and when to smash that mute button. But today I'm taking a look at not one content creator, but thousands of content creators, and they're all long dead. However, their work, once it falls out of copyright, lives on at an incredible website called the Public Domain Review, described by its founders as a web-based Wunderkammer. That's a German word that I've almost certainly mispronounced, meaning cabinet of curiosities. And that it absolutely is. There is so much amazing, crazy, incredible stuff there. We'll have a look at some of it in a minute. But it's also a site that really makes you appreciate the role of libraries in the preservation of public knowledge and the digitization work that so many of them around the world are doing, making really fragile, old, physical pieces of media available to all of us, at least to those of us fortunate enough to have a screen and an internet connection. This, by the way, is what people 125 years ago thought the internet might look like. It's also a philosophical project offering some food for thought on the question of copyright itself and the concept of a digital commons and open knowledge. It'll probably force you to consider how long you think it's fair for the creator or owner of an artistic or intellectual work to have full control over its use. But the copyright conversation is a topic for another time. I really just want to focus in this video on all the amazing stuff that is available at the Public Domain Review.
I have not shown you these pictures and quoted from this material merely to shock you or make this presentation sensational.
Browsing this website is sort of like walking around in the best op shop / museum you've ever stumbled across, except that all the stuff you find there is free to enjoy, share, and build upon without restriction. So I had this idea that here I would show you footage of my cat Kenny watching this experimental documentary film from the 40s titled The Private Life of a Cat, to make the point that I could do that and not worry about being sued for copyright over it. But Kenny wasn't having a bar of it. I guess the point still stands. You'll find long-lost guides to physical training for businessmen, texts describing the consumption of psychoactive urine, or an album for recording social connections like a 17th century Facebook. They've got the earliest photograph of the Paris catacombs. They've got records of pigs and other animals in court facing legal trial for human crimes, which is apparently a thing that used to happen. They've got a whole collection of illustrations of a piano comprised of yelping cats. There's even a 1940 film titled Experiments in the Revival of Organisms, which shows Soviet researchers, apparently successfully, bringing clinically dead organisms back to life.
Isolated organs can be brought to life, even though they've been removed from the animal's corpse some time after death. Here's a dog's heart. The isolated heart beats just as it did a few hours previously in the living dog.
I won't show it here because it's a little bit confronting, but that film goes on to show the isolated head of a real dog responding to stimuli like light, sound, and a feather tickling its nose. Sort of simultaneously off-putting but incredibly intriguing type stuff.
The revival of the whole organism can be achieved with the help of an apparatus called the autoinjector. The autoinjector carries out the functions of the heart and lungs.
So you might be wondering, well, what's the story behind this site? So The Public Domain Review began life in 2011, thanks to a couple of guys who had a grander vision for the very modest and very unvisited blog they'd started. According to the site's 10th birthday post, which is well worth a read, I'm going to link to it in the blurb below. It all started when its co-founders, Adam Green and Jonathan Gray, were living a life of great frugality and freedom in Berlin, spending far too long immersed in various online archives in search of images for collages and other mostly unrealized artworks. Basically, it seems they realized just how much gold is out there if you know where to look in the digitized library collections of the world. And they decided to turn this love for exploring online troves into a bigger project.
They say it can't be done, that it's just an impossible dream.
They secured some initial funding to get the project started, launched the website, and from there it just took on a life of its own as a not-for-profit project reliant on donations. It's now a carefully curated collection of paintings, illustrations, literature, photographs, music, films, some stuff predating the 16th century, other stuff from as recently as the 20th. And they often come with accompanying essays by historians or experts that provide context to individual pieces or collections.
Notice how wonderful you're beginning to feel, like you were floating away into dreams.
Now, there are obviously loads of places you can go and find out of copyright works. I think they're all great. Just what sets the Public Domain Review apart is its approach to curation. They're deliberately highlighting the sorts of things that don't usually make it into the history books. Here's how Adam Green described their approach in an interview with Vice back in 2013.
We tend to go for stuff that's less well known, so rather than put up all the works of Charles Dickens, we'll go for something toward the more unorthodox end of the cultural spectrum instead. It's a sort of alternative history to the mainstream narrative, an attempt to showcase just some of the excellence and strangeness of human ideas and activity that exist in between these bigger events and works that seem to have woven the narrative of history.
And that in-between space can be really, really fascinating. So you might find a collection of colour wheels, charts and tables through history, which is a chronology of various attempts through the last 4 centuries to visually organise and make sense of colour, from simple wheels to multi-layered pyramids, from scientific systems to those based on the hues of human emotion. Or you might find a series of coloured illustration cards from 1900, imagining what life in the year 2000 would look like.
Some technologies are wonderfully prescient. Chicken eggs are incubated with machines. Tailoring is partially automated. Crowds assemble at the symphony for electronic music. Still, other predictions remain bizarre, mainly those that anticipated rapid nautical conquest. Submarine divers trawling the sea's surface for seagulls, underwater croquet, and a whale bus, exactly as it sounds.
Something I stumbled upon that amused me a great deal was a French series of engraved illustrations from 1657 titled The Games and Pleasures of Childhood.
Many of the games depicted are familiar to us today, such as tennis, darts, and blind man's buff, but many are more unusual. One, titled Le Jeu de Triangle, literally translating as the game of fart in the face, seems to involve just what it says on the tin. Another, simply titled Bataille, Battle, seems to be akin to one massive free-for-all punch-up.
I do have to take issue with one small detail in their blurb there. I'm not sure that these games are all that unusual. If you are someone who spends any time with small children these days, you probably know that the fart in the face game or a free-for-all punch-up remains pretty much just as popular today as it seems to have been a few hundred years ago. And look, while we're on the theme, I'll show you a video from the Public Domain Review's YouTube channel titled Farmer Plays a Song with Hand Farts. It's from a 1933 Universal newsreel. Really, it's the interview at the end of his performance that I think is the most interesting part.
Tell me, Mr. Dill, how did you happen to discover this amazing talent of yours?
Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Hagerman. In the year of 1914, in the month of February, I was coming home from school and my hands got very cold, and you see, I had no mittens. And I began, of course, pressing them together to get them warm, and that wouldn't do. Well, pretty soon I began squeezing them, and I was surprised to think that I could make a few different sounds.
One of the other really great things about the public domain review is that it links back to the original digital libraries their material is sourced from, so that you can click through and see things in their original context should you be so interested. The site actually describes itself as being like a small exhibition gallery at the entrance to an immense network of archives and storage rooms that lie beyond. And I think that's a perfect way to describe it. And as I sort of touched on earlier, on a meta level, this really has the added effect of making you appreciate libraries and reminds you just how amazing it is that we live in a time when all of this stuff is literally at the tips of our fingers. The fact that you don't even have to physically visit one of these buildings that have all the old books stored inside them anymore.
Perhaps the secret lay within this government archives building.
This really is the sort of exact thing that the internet promised us in the early days. Imagine how much it would blow the mind of someone in the Middle Ages to know that we had this sort of access to the collection of human knowledge now.
Come, let's travel into the future. What will we see?
Anyway, that's all from me for now. I know this has been less of a critical review and a bit more of a PSA because I just wanted to let you know that the site exists if you weren't already aware of it, and to encourage you to support it if you can. Throw them a few bucks if you can afford it, if they're doing stuff you like. I also really recommend following them on Instagram if that's a platform that you use. They post there quite regularly, and it's always just a little treat to have one of their images or collections and the little story that goes with it to come up in your feed. I find it to be a really nice little mental escape from the tyranny of the now that really dominates our online feeds and the modern media environment. It's nice to take a step back and realize that we are just a little blip in history. So yeah, spread the word about the public domain review. Let me know what you think in the comments, or flick me an email at theinternetreviewed@gmail.com if you have any suggestions for someone or something you'd like to see me review next. Thanks for watching.